Hi, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. If more people join us later, that's fine. So my name is Catherine Croft Swanwick, and I'm the Director of Outreach here at MindSpec, and this is our brand new webinar series called Bridging Parents with Autism Science. And today we'll be introducing you to the Autism Reading Room as an online tool for exploring autism research. So just a couple of housekeeping things. I've muted everybody just to make sure there's not much feedback, but if you have questions, you should be able to see on your control screen a space to type in the question, and then I can answer it. And also, you should have a space for raising your hand if you want me to stop. And if you have an urgent question, I can address your question right away. So with that, we'll go ahead and I'll give you a brief overview of our webinar series. So the webinar schedule, this summer we're doing the introductory webinars, which is using Autism Reading Room as an online tool for autism research. And then this fall we'll have one webinar per month where we go in depth into individual topics. So in September, we'll be talking about prevalence, so the trends and statistics regarding the rising prevalence of autism. And we'll have a guest scientist video for that. And in October, we'll go over brain biology of autism, the current knowledge about the development of autistic brains. And in November, it's genetics, the guide to the hundreds of risk factors linked to autism. And in December, we'll talk about environmental factors, including the strength of evidence for all of the known environmental risk factors. So all of these are topics from Autism Reading Room, and we'll be going to each of them in depth. So just to let you know who we are, we're MindSpec. We're a scientific nonprofit research organization, which means that the goals that we have are we create databases for other scientists in the autism research community. We do our own original research here at MindSpec, and we also, our third goal is to do outreach, and that is to actually empower parents with scientific knowledge straight from scientists. So our team is led by Dr. Sharmila Banerjee Basu. She's our president and chief scientific officer. My name again is Catherine Swanwick. I'm the director of outreach, and we have three groups of people, scientists, IT developers, and writers who all contributed to the reading room. And most of us are here today to answer any questions that you might have. So this is just, as I told you, this first one's called Autism Reading Room. We're going to take a tour of Autism Reading Room. And so the plan for today is to give you about a 20-minute tour of the resource and how you can use it to explore research. And then we're going to open up the webinar to questions. So any questions you might have about science for autism, please ask them, and our team of scientists here are happy to answer anything that you might have. So before I launch into the live website tour, I just wanted you to be aware of three tools that Autism Reading Room have. We call it our Autism Reading Room Toolbox. And that is the Autism Quiz, which is also a free app on iTunes. And we have 4 types of quizzes to test your autism knowledge and to spread it with your friends. And you can share your scores and results on Facebook. And so we have basic, advanced, misconceptions, and in the news. And so we invite you to try that out either from Autism Reading Room or by downloading the free app. And we also have an autism dictionary which has over 900 terms related to autism. So if you ever run across something that you don't understand from any of your parents' literature, you can refer to our autism dictionary and we define the source there. And our third thing is news in context. So there's a lot of autism news coming out every day, and I think it's hard for parents to understand what it means in the big picture. So we created 5 Autism Reading Room guides relating to sections of Autism Reading Room, and they're brain biology, trends, advances, public policy, and clinic. And so we use these guides so with the news stories. So for instance, here's an example of a news story on my screen where I have, this is 3 new papers link hundreds more genes to autism. and we talk about the overview, so what's the summary of this, the background, so what was known before, what's new, and then why this is important. So we try and give you the big picture of autism research. And we have links to the original story through Autism Reading Room, and you can click on our guide. So here we have the clinic guide, which sends you to genetics, and it explains to you how this story fits into the big picture of genetics on our Autism Reading Room. So let me go ahead and go to the live website. So it's readingroom.mindspec.org. And let's see. If you have any questions along the way, please type them into the box and I'll be happy to answer them. So this is Autism Reading Room at readingroom.mindspec.org. And the first thing you see is this front slider, which has a counter of all of the autism research papers. So the number available as of today, as you can see, is 18,658. So that's a lot of autism research, and we're here just to translate that to you and tell you what's important and what's not. And so each one of these sliders actually relates to a section of Autism Reading Room, like trends. We have what is autism, which goes to the clinic section up here. And then we have risk factors, which also goes to the clinic section back up here. So let me take you through each of these sections at the top. But before I do, I just wanted to let you see the rest of the page. So this is our mission, and that is to explain scientific advances in autism research to a general audience. And we have our tools here, our autism quiz, upcoming events like the webinar, an intro video, and our news and context. And you can also access on the bottom row, you can go directly to statistics for autism, the autism quiz, public policy, or the autism dictionary. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you our intro video, which is about 1.5 minutes. And that will kind of capture the whole website, and then we can go into each of the tabs to show you what you can use our resource for.
Welcome to Autism Reading Room. We want to help you understand the latest scientific advances in autism research. Millions of adults and children around the world have an autism spectrum disorder, and you probably want to know why and what's being done about it. Are you overwhelmed by what you hear in the news? Allow us to help you interpret the latest stories within our reading room walls. The Autism Reading Room has a unique floor plan that allows visitors to easily explore autism risk factors, current therapies, or brain basics. Why not test your newfound knowledge with our online quizzes, or give our up-to-date quiz app a try and share your score with friends? Take a look. The Autism Reading Room offers something for everyone, leaving you informed and empowered.
Okay, so that gives a good overview of what the website's about, but let me take you through each of these top tabs. So the Trends tab here, if you click on it, it has an intro page, and all of the tabs are set up like that. And the individual topics are research. So we go a history of autism research throughout the decades. We have in the news, where you can access the news in context. We have Google Trends, where you can explore the research for yourself. So what's being done, what's being funded. We have statistics, which gives you a research snapshot of what's being done right now, the prevalence, and not just for the U.S., but worldwide, and also just trends in funding. And we have misconceptions. So there's many misconceptions about autism research, and here we try to address each one. So let me, as an example, click on the statistics tab for you. And each one of these subsections has this setup where it has key questions which you can click on to navigate directly to these pages. So here we have how much progress has been done in autism research and what are the trends in autism research. So I'll click on one of those in a minute, but I wanted to show you that each page like this also has key points, so take-home messages for the user, and it has a common misconception about autism. So for example, here it's that autism is a rare disorder. affecting very few individuals, when the fact is that it's actually the second most prevalent neurodevelopmental disorder among children. And so let's navigate to, let's see, what are the trends in autism research? So you can scroll through here to see the funding of autism research by the NIH over the years, the percent change in funding, the number of publications on autism, the number of publications compared to other diseases over time, the number of genes associated with autism, or if I go back up to the top, I can show you prevalence. So this is the estimated prevalence of autism in the world, and you can compare different countries over, or different continents here over time. And you can also see the map, a visual map, and if you click on each of these circles, it takes you to a different time period. So the very right one is the most current one. And then it also gives you the prevalence in the U.S. over time, the latest being the 2008 numbers. So that's an overview of the trends part, and you can explore it in your own time. But there's a lot of information here if you want to know the statistics about autism or the history. And so next we'll go through the clinic. So we start here on the clinic overview page. We have an autism profile, which shows you all the features of the disease and the range of symptoms that you might have. The risk factors, genetic and environmental, diagnosis, so all of the diagnosis tests, and the therapy section, which is currently under development but should come out in the fall. And so let me take you through the profile page. So as you probably all know, the autism has 3 core deficits: the social interactions, language and communication, and repetitive behaviors. But there's also a lot of co-occurring symptoms that can happen, such as anxiety, sensory issues, immune dysfunction, sleep, etc. And we've pictured them all here in this graph. And if you go through the risk factors, we actually have compiled, you can go to genetics or environmental factors. So if you go to genetics, we tell you there's actually hundreds of genes linked to autism. And so we go through each of them, and you can navigate through these key questions. And also there's copy number variants, which is a chromosomal variation that are linked to autism. We go through the genetic testing, not as a diagnosis tool because it's not possible right now, but more like a treatment guide. And we also have gene stories explaining how each of the autism risk genes affects brain function. And if you go to environmental factors, we have about 8 different sections for each of the main environmental factors linked to autism. And so we actually tell you what the strength of evidence for each one is. So the most important thing I want to show you right now is we have a toxicologist who writes this section, and she created this toxicology pyramid, which is common for the field, where they put the rare and direct environmental factors, like the strongest ones linked to autism, are at the top. And as you can see, that's thalidomide, misoprostol, valproic acid, and then congenital rubella infection. And then the moderate ones are in the middle. And the way she defined moderate is that there's more than 10 peer-reviewed science publications. So you can see in the middle, these are all of the factors that have more than 10 papers published about them. And weak are all the things that have less than 10 papers which associate them with autism. So we've included everything from the scientific literature here, and you can see which ones need more research and which ones don't. Or everything needs more research, but you can compare them here. And then finally, the diagnosis, we go through diagnosis criteria, and we have, you can see in this menu, the different options. There's autistic disorder, Asperger's, PDD, NOS, Rett syndrome, and CDD. We have the infant screening tests, and the child screening tests, and then the diagnosis tests. So say, for instance, you click on child screening. We actually go through each of the different tests and give a little synopsis of what what it's about and what it involves.